is a podcaster, public speaker, advocate for social change, and a developer relations professional. He has a background in technology, working for companies like AMD, Atlassian, Dell, IBM, and MongoDB. He co hosts two podcasts: Community Pulse, which explores the challenges and opportunities of community building and developer relations, and Radical Respect, which features conversations with Kim Scott on creating more inclusive and equitable workplaces. Today, he will explore the complexities of community governance, emphasizing the importance of integrating members' feedback and voices into the decision making process. Through practical strategies, attendees will learn how to implement feedback mechanisms and establish governance structures that empower members and drive sustainable community engagement.
Hope everyone's doing well. I didn't want to just hop into the presentation without using this platform to kind of highlight some things that are extremely important right now. Um, right now, we have a choice, and it doesn't matter if you are a community manager. As long as you're a human, you can understand the momentumous time that's going on, this atmosphere that we're dealing with. So wanted to raise awareness before we get into the meat of the subject that we do have a choice, and the choice is in our power. There are clear options between democracy and dictatorship. And if you are confused about that, then I hope that you have time to clear. This presentation will help clear that up to help give you and push you into a place where you can make a decision of what you want. Now, democracies are structures that are built for the people. The people have a voice, the people can be able to express what they need. But dictatorships, I mean, they are just meant to serve the people in power. They're meant to achieve their own goals and just use the people to get to whatever ends they need to do the thing that makes them happy, makes them successful. And so I want to ask you, as the public, what does your community look like? Of course, I've been talking about communities this whole time. I don't know if your mind went somewhere else, but communities is what we're here to talk about. And so if you are looking at your own community, which one does it look more like a dictatorship or a democracy? Are you setting up goals and just figuring out how you can use the community to get to those goals? Or are you setting it up as a democracy and want to make sure that the community gets what they need and you are more of a servant leader in that way? I think it's clear to say that dictatorships are not good. So your community shouldn't look like that. But let's say why they are not good. Dictatorships fail because of whatever they're doing to keep it going is something that is a resource drain. So let's look at some of the signs that your community might be a dictatorship. If you're repetitive about your posts, it's a Tuesday, so I'm going to do this. Oh, we just did an announcement, so I'm going to post this. We are trying to juice engagement, so we're going to run a contest. If you're doing these rinse and repeat playbook style community management, you might be running a dictatorship. If you are seeking feedback, you're looking for insights, you're trying to feed back to the property or the service that your community is built upon, but you get silence, crickets, or things that are wildly different than other sources, you might not have trust. People may not feel like they can give you feedback or honest feedback because it's not valuable or it's not worth it. So if you're building a dictatorship, realize that people will fall in line, yes, but they also are seen as not able to influence change, not able to influence the structure of the organization. So if you're running a structure that people need to conform against or in, then realize that that structure doesn't allow them to feel like they're heard. So if you see this lack of trust, realize that you could be in a dictatorship. Next is turnover. Are some of your most seasoned, most uh, like veteran users and members leaving the platform? Is their engagement more sporadic than those who are new to the community? Are they finding it less and less valuable as they spend time? If you are seeing this, keep in mind that you're probably in a dictatorship. And I think this clearly shows dictatorship bad. Dictatorship has negatives. Dictatorship has its downsides. Um, but let's understand a little bit on a lower level what we have that we're building upon to build communities. Okay, if you're a community manager, you're probably used to this formula where you understand you set up a COC, a code of conduct, and you say that these are the boundaries of the community. You you build up channels, you build up rooms, you build up silos, whatever you want to call it, where people can talk about specific subjects. This could be in your Slack group. This could be in your forum. This could even be on social if you have a handle for developers, for instance, and one for business that is just general press releases or whatever. Basically, if you're running a community, no matter what form, it's going to be kind of in this type of segmentation. And the last is the interaction of the people. They will interact with each other. They will add their own content. And this is kind of what builds up your community culture. Uh, it's these numbers of these percentages are just just placeholders, but every community is bespoke, every community is different, and every community will kind of basically use the same formula to kind of determine what is they're made up of. But a community, when you approach it from this way, this is where you'll see more of the the dictatorships. If it's heavily relying on the community manager and less on the community to shape it. But what if we gave up some of our control? I know we don't have 100% control, and in this example, we only have 35%. But what if we give up just a sliver? Now, could you give up more control and actually make your community more successful? I say yes. Now, do you need to write all of the code of conduct? I'm sure there's some wiggle room here, right? What if we carve off just a piece of it and say some of it is core? Okay, this is non negotiable. But some of it, maybe a little 5% or so, we can carve off and allow users to put in their own information, put in their own kind of function of what they want the community to look like. What if we allow them in to do that? That'll be a little bit less done from your standpoint, but more on the community. And that's better than what we had before. So it feels more participatory. And then what if we carve out a little bit more of the community management work to have them moderate some of your community? So being able to answer some questions on your behalf, on the company's behalf. That's a full chunk of a lot of the work that you do, is that caring feeding that you do on a daily basis. But what if we give that authority to the people? And then what if we give a little bit more? All right. So what if we use the community to find community feedback, to be able to reach out proactively or reach out reactively and bundle that feedback and then send it back to the community manager? They could be a liaison. They could be a point of interest contacts. Like, for instance, if you have like a developer community, a company community, but what if you have one for just customers? What if you have one for aerospace or finance or whatever verticals you want? What if you choose to have people who are point people to either monitor and see what the feedback is that people are just posting without actually sending it to the community manager or even to one of these moderators? What if you're just kind of what if these people are just people who are in the community so much that they're able to have a good feeling of what the feedback is, their pulse, if you will, on the community? But can we do more? Can we give out more? All right, what if we go full chaos mode and bring in a customer advocacy board. Well, if we add them to the point where they are able to not just be reactive, meaning looking at the forum posts in the past, but what if we pull them in and have them help co-create strategy, co-create incentive programs, make sure that the community is served in the way that they think they need to be served from representatives who not are just feedback to the community manager about the community, but actually have some agency, have some real power so that they have a vote, they have a seat at the table where they're just not just listened to, but actually heard. And there is some sort of guarantees to make sure that their voice is going to be reflected in any final outcome that is created. All right. And so each of these is kind of like whittling into like what a community manager does, at least what you might think it is. And that might leave you to think, okay, so what do I do now? If I'm handing over more of my work to the community, how does that actually look? How do I justify that? And remember, you have a choice. Do you want to be a dictatorship or do you want to be a democracy? You have to choose between one of those two. And you can also think about it like, do you need more control or do you need to figure out how you coordinate the community, empower those, give them the tools they need to be able to be more self-reliant, be more control of their destiny about the growth of the community? You got to choose which one you want to do. And I say you got to choose, but the truth is I lied. It's an actual spectrum. You could do a little control, you can do a little coordination, you can figure out where you are in that spectrum, but figure out how you keep moving that a little bit more on the coordination side rather than the control side. So you actually don't need to make a choice, especially if you're fully in the dictatorship right now. You don't have to flip a switch and go all the way to coordinated. So I, I think we can see why control feels constrictive, can kind of like make it so that you can't grow as a group. But the question is, what are some of the good things of moving to a more democratic system with your communities? And so I have these examples. All right. The first thing is you get co-ownership. And Justin made a really good call out for this about when people feel like they're co-creating something, then they are putting skin in the game. Their reputation is on the line. Their value system of being appointed to a role is kind of core to their identity. And so when they see that they succeed in their endeavor to either push forth for new change, to include more people, to champion new projects within the community, they are like invested to make sure it succeed. So they're not going to just follow a playbook. They're going to create new ways to reach that end goal. So it's less about how things are done, and it's going to be more on doing whatever it takes to be successful. And when you're in the dictatorship, you are making the rules, you're telling people what lane to stay in. But co ownership allows them to really focus on the end goal. But it also gives them space to bring unique ideas. So if you're on a forum, should you maybe do a little TikTok? Should you do a little Instagram threads? Do you expand to new places where they know that they have a community and that their community that they're already established is really in synergy with the community that you have? And maybe this is a way of merging the two. Maybe they want to take on a newsletter. Maybe they want to make a digest. Maybe they want to make their own website that kind of really distills the value of the community and all the valuable nuggets to other audiences that you're not familiar with. Sometimes when we are running communities, we are feeling restricted by roles or sometimes restricted by resources. And allowing the community to take up the hat of one of these roles will expand your resources, but also lets them self-select into the things that they feel passionate about and gives them the permission to run with it. And also scalability. you're limited. Human resources are limited. You can always hire more people. You can scale that way. But are you scaling a dictatorship, or do you want to really scale more of a democracy? So scaling externally by running these different programs and allowing people to have a say, and then making sure that they stay on top of it. Make sure that you are a little bit of a taskmaster. Make sure that you are able to give adequate feedback to empower them, but not control them. Gives them the ability to kind of grow around the gravity that's around their subject matter expertise, around the existing communities that they have. They want to figure out a synergy to kind of combine, and allows them to be representative or ambassadors on behalf of the community of saying, like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, we can do that. Yes, totally, we can work with you. And that allows you to do that. So, community good if you move towards a democracy, bad if you move away from dictatorship. You don't want to be there. But the question is, how do you get from there to here if you find yourself in a dictatorship? Okay, so what you need to do is do an audit. You need to figure out what are the resources that you have. Look at your social channels. Look at how people are talking about you. Look at actual feedback. If you've done surveys, if you've done town halls, look at the suggestions that are piled up, that are in the backlog, and figure out the things that you can actually start to address to show that their feedback and their involvement is welcome. Find the people, despite what you're currently doing, are your champions, the people who are still out there championing your group, championing your community. Add them as possible resources for things you want to move forward from that list. Come up with goals after doing this assessment, run it up the chain, get not only stakeholders from like your boss and your direct change, but as many partners within the company, within the organization that you work in. Because when you start getting more feedback, when you start getting more involvement, you're going to need the partnership of people in different organizations within your company or different groups. So try to bring in your group of people, and then you're going to actually have to go through a formal relaunch. So you can't just say that we're going to start doing this, but actually you have to say we're turning a new leaf, and you have to acknowledge some of the things and the failings of the past. And hopefully you've started with your champions with actually coming with a plan, coming up with a pipeline and a procedure for instituting some of the backlog of ideas. And then when you ask for new ideas, most of the time, that's going to be a match of some of the research you've already done, and you already know how those are going to be tackled. And so you can really turn a fast turnaround in the satisfaction of what people have brought and show that, yes, we are listening. Yes, it's valuable. And yes, we're going to move forward with that. And this is an opportunity for you to say, change is good. Change is something that's valuable. Bringing in new voices is more of a dynamic way to run a community, one that really is going to task you on your people building skills, your leadership building skills, your project management skills. And you're going to need to make sure that you have the buy-in from people who are in charge of what community looks like to make sure that they can support you on this. Doing this alone is hard. Doing it when you're fighting against a toxic work environment or a toxic system, or one that's firmly in the dictatorship column and is not interested in this, will set you up for failure and will set your community up for a greater disappointment. So make sure that you are supported in all of the ways you needed to make sure you follow through. All right. I have a quick disclaimer. I'm not going to read it, and I'm going to make sure that we have time for Q&A. And so that's the end of my presentation. And if you see the QR code, you can scan it and download these slides. So if you want to, if you're watching this back later, or if you want to slow-mo it, you can do it that way. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Wes. Wow, I really just love to hear you speak. I don't know if it's the tone of your voice or the fact that you're so intelligent and eloquent, but I really do enjoy it. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Thanks for putting this on too. This is amazing work and amazing content. This is awesome. I've watched every single session and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So like, and this is free? Oh wait, come on. This is amazing.
It's free. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you for the compliment.
Mhm.
It brings me so much joy to bring all of these folks together to just like deliver some stellar resources and advice. Speaking of advice, there's a couple of questions in our Q&A tab here that people are interested in listening, having
Okay,
you
let's
answer their questions.
bring it on.
Let me see. Okay, this one's good. How do you manage the expectations of external members of your customer advocacy board? I love the idea, but ultimately, my company will not allow us to make changes that don't align with our business objectives, even if they're really great community ideas, because it's always about ROI at the end of the day.
Um, well, community is about ROI as well, but the ROI doesn't have to be this quarter. The I, the return can be, sorry, the return can be like 2, 3, 10 quarters from now. Investing in community, building a strong community is an investment worth making. And if you're only doing short-term like transactions, saying like, what can I do for the goal for even this year or this quarter or this half, and not doing the long-term investment in coordination, then it could hurt your community. So yes, you have to be able to make sure that the time horizon is really spelled out, about and have like a good menu of saying we have to do all of these, maybe in different proportions, but we have to make sure that it's diversified, because if we're only doing on the short term, then going back to the dictatorship, you're not concerned about those long-term members. You're not concerned about that turnover. You're not concerned about that engagement. You're only concerned about bringing in new members, getting that engagement, having them participate, and then keep doing that. And then you're just going to be kind of like treading water at one point, where all your resources is now just trying to grow the community by bringing in more people, but not cutting your losses and not deepening the investment of the other people into your community. So if you can make that case of like community is not just a mechanism, there it's a flywheel. You have to make sure that they have some sort of voice. And like I said, you have to find there's a slider. You don't have to choose one or the other. Figure out where you are in that spectrum. And the question is, do you have trust? Do they trust you to make the call? Or are you just an executioner? You just do what you're told. Uh, know what you're working with. That's another type of it, and figure out and only fight the battles you feel you can win, because if it's in the disclaimer. So read that back.
That was a great question from Genevieve. I hope that answers your question. I have a question too. How do you handle situations where member feedback like really conflicts with the community's long-term goals or values?
Easy. If you build up transparency and trust, you can say why. If it's something that you cannot articulate externally, then that's bad in multiple reasons. Because you either have a hidden agenda, or you feel like if you told them the truth, that they would start to leave, or there would be an upheaval. Try not to gather secrets. Try not to be in a place where you are building a war chest of ammunition that can be used against you. Uh, some people are even clear with saying like, "Oh, this community is to help people so that we can earn more money." Say that. Some people are like, "Cool, that's fine. I totally understand." If because I know I've been to several networking events where it's like, "Oh, this is where you can get other people to help you like get deeper in your career, or to do introductions so that you can get something of it." It's transactional. Some people are fine with that. That's cool. I'm not one of those, but people won't just leave in mass if you're able to set up the expectations, and so they can say, "Oh, well, I can understand why you're doing this, because I understand the greater mission. You made it clear. I can see how it aligns. I can see how this could hurt that, both short term and long term." And then you should be able to explain that. I mean, that's why we're community professionals, right? If this was easy, and if everyone could walk that line, everyone would do it. It takes expertise, it takes science and artistry to be able to do that the right way, to make sure that you hold the the thoughts and the cares of your company, but also of the community. And so if you're able to balance that, that's why you're good at your job.
Yeah, that's great. It makes me think, I mean, you're right about transparency. I think not only the company being transparent, but the members like having that moment where they check in with themselves to say like,
Mhm,
am I okay with this? Like, is this an okay way for me to contribute? And it makes me think I used to play this game on my phone, and if I wanted a hint, I could ask for a hint, but I had to watch like a 20-second ad. And I remember in the moment being like, well, yeah, my 20 seconds of my time is worth getting a hint to like continue
mhm,
playing this game. And then realizing that that trade is like, that's that transactional, like, am I okay with coming here even though this is what the company's getting from me? And I think the same can be said for communities. Like, I understand that
mhm.
you're using my information for this or that you're using this as marketing or whatever, but like I get so much out of it that it's okay. I'm going to look past that and say, yes, I want this anyway.
Yeah, and people leave your community for many different reasons. Do you want them to leave because they say they're liars, or do you want them to leave to say it wasn't for them? Saying it wasn't for them is totally fine. They don't need to badmouth it. They could just say it just wasn't a fit for me, but maybe it'd be a fit for you. But if they say that your community is full of lies and manipulative, now that's a negative that that will get spread out of your control.
Yeah, that's a really hard one to come back from. Well, we're out of time, Wesley. Thank you so much again for joining us, and thank you for answering some of our questions. We'll make sure, I see there's a few more unanswered questions. We'll see if we can save these ones and get to them in another venue at some point. Thanks again, Wesley.
Bye.